What's the most fucked up thing you overheard in a conversation? Worst one is probably on my first and last family vacation. Overheard my father explaining to my cousin, who was the same age as me, 18, just fresh out of school, that my life is completely pointless because my older brother has already achieved all the goals a son should, so there's no point in me at all. My daughter was talking to a kid at a playground. She was showing him a scar she had on her leg from a bike wreck. He showed her a scar on his arm and said, "I got cut with a knife and had to get stitches. It's why I can't see my mom anymore." He was maybe 5. I was a manager at a resort in the mountains. It was the late 90s and we did not have telephones in the rooms, and this was before everyone had cell phones. A young woman asked to use our office phone after hours. I listened to this poor woman tell her mother that her boyfriend just admitted to cheating on her and that he tested positive for AIDS. I felt so sorry for her. Stood behind a couple arguing loud. The man screams, "What the fuck were you thinking? I thought you were in danger." I almost called 911, to which she screamed, "I'm so fucking sorry for wanting to send you something sexy. That won't happen again." Me and my friend had to contain our laughter. Walking through a mall while in high school, a woman walking with her husband, I assumed, told him, "What you've done is worse than mass murder." I've thought about this for a long time. Went to a wedding which my roommate's girlfriend also attended, without my roommate. She introduced her fiancé, a different man, to a group of people without realizing I was nearby. Standing in line behind a couple at a restaurant waiting to be seated. Guy: "Oh, so you'll never believe who I got an email from." Girl: "Oh yeah, who?" Guy, smirking, happy, "From the old place, it was about the compost and..." Girl: "Look, I just can't, okay? I can't get into that again. Not again. I want to know what happened with the compost at their old place so badly." I work at a restaurant, and one time I was bringing the food out to this table of 4 women, all approximately in their 50s, 60s, just in time to hear one say to the others, so I decided to go with an ass-play theme. "That's so stupid. How does someone drown underwater?" From a friend's brother-in-law in court: "Your Honor, I was just fucking her 13-year-old stepdaughter. I wasn't hurting her." He went to prison for a long, long time. Overheard with no context at the bar: "The snake blood was okay, it just tasted like human blood." In a restaurant, sitting behind me were 3 men who obviously worked together, talking to, what I gathered, a new employee, about wife swapping, and the new guy wasn't having it. I used to work at Disneyland. There was one time backstage, I walked past Belle and Cruella in full costume. Belle was yelling at Cruella, "You're a fucking bitch," never sounded so weird. People behind us at a diner were clearly an emotive former exotic dancer with a complicated past, apologizing to her date, who left the priesthood for her, that she was still in love with her abusive ex. She was very wound up and trauma dumping for an hour with him, saying almost nothing. At one point she said, "You must hate me so much." He calmly replied, with a little bit of a southern accent, "Darlin', I'm about 10 minutes past hating you." A lady thought she was an experiment created in the Mayo Clinic lab. She said she had no parents and was the first of her kind. The entire conversation was completely bizarre. She absolutely needed some mental help. I drove for Uber. 2 lawyers talking about how corrupt our judicial system is. I worked as a mover for a time, and one day 2 of my coworkers were talking about dogfighting, and how excited they were to see their new dog in action. I've never felt so much disgust for human beings that are actually in front of me. I was once on a train from Birmingham to my hometown, a journey of about 45 minutes. For the first 10 minutes, there's this guy at the back of the carriage having a really loud phone conversation with his brief lawyer about an upcoming case where it was clear that he was being told the evidence against him was certain to see him sent down and he was having none of it, just aggressively telling them that they'd best keep him out of prison and not listening to a word they said, clearly, and getting more agitated. As soon as this call ended, he began a series of calls where he screamed at people to find this guy by the time the train reached its destination, after which he was going to stab him in the fucking neck. Calls were made to the intended target where he screamed the same, to what sounded like the target's girlfriend and family members, to people he thought could locate him. It was basically half an hour of this crazed psycho yelling into a phone about the impending violence that he was bringing. Just call after call of it, at full volume in a train with perhaps a dozen or so other people. It was like an overly long and extremely uncomfortable scene from a movie. In college at a dorm, I was playing pool with my roommate. We were in the main lobby and later another guy from another floor came down with a buddy and sat down to watch us play and reserved the table so they could play the next game. The guy was talking to his buddy about how the cops interviewing him because he had sex with a passed-out drunk girl in her dorm room. She woke up in the middle of it and started freaking out. My roommate and I acted like we couldn't hear him, but we kept exchanging glances when he kept talking about how he raped a girl. The guy was acting like it wasn't a big deal and she was blowing it out of proportion and he was the true victim. The guy then starts to buddy up to us, we kind of coldly blew him off, finished our game, and GTFO. A week later I opened the newspaper and sure enough, he'd been charged for rape. This was 25 years ago. Kind of chilling. Never found out if he was found guilty or not, but the dude legitimately did not think he did anything wrong. How my dad died. When I was younger, I was being babysat by a neighbor and longtime family friend. I was upstairs playing when I decided to go downstairs for some reason. While walking down the stairs, I overheard neighbor talking to her sister and telling her that my dad had killed himself. I was fairly young at this stage and wasn't sure what it meant fully, but had an idea. Never said anything to the neighbor and didn't bother to tell my mom until a few years ago about what I'd heard. I just took a kitten trapped outside in a carrier the last couple days with no food, water, or litter box. It belonged to my downstairs neighbor and I overheard from my window their son telling other kids not to touch it because his mom threw it away. I look out my window and there's the carrier next to the trash can with her crying in the cage. I took the kitten at night and have her eating and drinking. She's skin and bone, I can feel them all. She's purring at my feet right now, playing and giving me headbutts. Some people don't deserve, Edit, cat tax, been years since I used Inger, but I think the links work. These are pics of me bringing her in the crate she was trapped in and letting her out. https://inger.com/a/y5jfb7b. Me and my friend were just using an elevator when one of my neighbors, an elderly woman, joined us. We tried some small talk with her until she dumped the info that despite doing everything in the house, no one wanted her and her daughter was looking some asylums to throw her in. Cue to awkward silence. No, she stayed with her daughter till the end of her life despite all. I overlooked someone breaking up their marriage of 15 years over WhatsApp. It was surreal. I could see the guy's messages coming in and he was going crazy. Edit. This was years ago when I was on vacation in America. I was in a bus and I just happened to glance at a 35-ish looking woman's phone. I was standing and she was sitting with her back to case so she couldn't see me. She just typed this whole big message about how she thought it was best that they weren't going to see each other and that she was going to leave him. She didn't give any reason why. I guessed it was just some fling. She was being weirdly casual about it. The guy replied instantly and seemed very surprised and upset. He was asking her questions why she would do this, while she barely answered. She just said stuff like, "We had a nice time together, I'm sure you'll meet someone nice," while not actually responding to anything the guy was asking. The guy was saying shit like, "How could you leave me after 15 years of marriage?" There was another guy, wasn't there? He basically kept repeating those two things for a while, but he wasn't getting through to her. She just kept saying shit like, "I'm sorry it didn't work out," I still love you, though, not responding to his actual words. It was like seeing an AI talk to a very distressed man. I don't know why she was being so casual and why she wasn't engaging with the guy's messages at all. I don't know why they were doing this over WhatsApp. This whole time, this lady didn't make a single noise or movement, she seemed totally emotionless. Eventually, I had to get off the bus, so I don't know what happened with them. I thought maybe I was being pranked or they were just fucking around. It was a very weird experience. Worked roadside assistance. I was changing a group of guys' tire in an apartment complex parking lot. It was not a good area. They were all standing around me, extremely agitated and hyping up about immediately going to shoot someone/drive by as retaliation for the shots taken at them. I was wondering if I could make it to my truck in time to get my pistol if I had to at that point. They nearly tan over me leaving. Moment car dropped on the new tire that turned it on and floored it. Blacklisted the entire zone and called the cops after I left. They didn't seem to give a shit, tbh. Texas, if curious, maybe 14 years ago. Last night heard a girl say to a guy, who she just met that night, "Have you ever been accused of rape?" I've been accused of rape. I guess it was when I was young, maybe 8 or 9 years old. My mom and dad were fighting. I heard my mom tell, "You don't even care about them. I'll take them and you'll never see us again." And then my dad yelled back, "Why don't I just kill you and then kill them right now?" Glass then shattered. I ran and grabbed my baseball bat thinking I'd have to kill my dad to save my mom, but he just ran out of the house instead. Turns out the glass shattering was something my mom threw at him after he said he'd kill her and my 2 siblings and I. She's a fierce woman. If she kills herself, I'll be so happy. From what I could gather, this group of girls were talking about someone they went to school with. Edit. To everyone responding with their own personal experiences related to suicide, I just want to say I am so proud of you and grateful you are still here, heart. Hang in there, you got this, heart. My dad brought me over to his friend's house years ago. He started talking about a story how he sold a guy a van with no brakes because they wouldn't have bought it and he needed the cash. After the guy bought the van and left, he couldn't stop and died in killing a family of 3. He said it so plainly that it was a normal thing. Just wanted to put food on the table. That's a sneak peek of my dad's friends. Using my throwaway for this for obvious reasons. The most honest, caring, and loyal roommate I ever had told me one night, while drunk, the story of his abusive father killing his mom. The night this conversation happened, the guy was sitting at our dining room table cleaning his hunting rifle. His dad was released from prison on a Tuesday. On Thursday he was shot dead on his parents' lawn. Roommate showed up on Friday, just said I've been here all week and went on with his life. I don't clean up cat barf. We used to let our dog eat it, then when she got too old and deaf to hear the cat barfing, we'd lead her to it so she'd eat it. Said to my brother, who had just gotten home from hospital due to attempted suicide. "Do you know how much that ambulance cost me?" "Dad." Why is this asshole trying to listen to our conversation? Overheard a nurse getting incredibly excited about a man's prostate cancer diagnosis because, and I quote, "He was such a mama's boy I had to leave him. He wouldn't stop doing things for her, and he's such a pussy for it. Like he actually got her a Mother's Day card, but all he got me on Mother's Day was Wendy's. He kinda deserves it," and in the most obnoxious laughter ever. She was proceeded to be fucking ripped apart by the specialist on staff, thankfully, but this woman was genuinely happy that her ex-boyfriend's prostate cancer was a thing, all because he loved his mom. Also, apparently she didn't even have a kid. She just thought the world revolved around her. I haven't gone back there yet. However, I do hope upon return she's been terminated because that's kinda fucked up. Makes me wonder how many people would be happy about my cancer diagnosis. I'm a bartender. I've heard some wild ones. 2 of my favorite. As hard as I've tried this week, I still haven't managed to cheat on my girlfriend. Girl to other girl, Do you think I should shower before I go over there? I reached in my pants earlier and it smelled like oysters. I once was forced to take a 6-hour car ride with my mother, aunt, and grandmother. They discussed their sex lives the entire time. Edit: since people can't be bothered to look at the rest of the thread, I was 12 at the time. Edit 2, my highest upvoted comment is about how my family traumatized me. Can't wait to see my therapist's reaction on Monday. Was at Nando's 3 years or so ago. There were a group of guys in their early to mid-20s, clearly on a guy's weekend out. They were loudly talking about how rad that party they all went to was, kept calling some girl a slut for how drunk she had gotten and how they'd all taken turns with her when she'd passed out in a room. The whole conversation was what order they'd raped her in and laughing about how great she felt. I was on a date and we both just lost our appetites, left shortly after, and I had to go throw up.